pleasant good afternoon to you, our viewer. This is Camnet TV, not just another channel. And this afternoon, we have brought on your screen a very interesting program where we're going to be looking at the affairs of refugees in Zambia. And in studio today, we are looking at the topic on sustainable livelihood program for refugees and others of concern in Zambia. And of course, I will be joined by interesting guests who are going to help us discuss this topic in detail. But as I introduced earlier, my name is Prudence Tota, and I will be accompanying you for the next 1 hour, even as we get to discuss the welfare of refugees in the country. Today, our dear listener, as part of the awareness program focusing on various activities undertaken by government and the United Nations High Commission for Refugees to assist persons of concern, we feature Mrs. Leukanji Piri. I don't know if I've pronounced your name correctly.
Yes, you have.
Okay, thank you so much. So welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. She's from the Office of the Commissioner of Refugees right here in Zambia. And of course, she's not alone. Also in studio, we have Mr. George Omodi Odoa. Mr. George, please welcome to the program. Of course, is from UNHCR, Livelihood Officer. And also, we have Mr. Misozi Chisenga, the Urbans Project Coordinator from Caritas, Czech Republic. Mr. Chisenga, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. So for everyone who's just joining us, this is a program that at one point we are going to allow you to just go through and make your contributions with regards to the topic of discussion today. But in case you're just joining us and you're wondering what is it that we are discussing, so the topic of today is sustainable livelihood program for refugees and others of concern in Zambia. For many years now, we all know that the issue of the refugees has been a subject of great concern. And of course, when we keep talking about the topic of discussion, a lot of people still have doubt, are going to get one or two answers. But in case you're joining us in your home and of course in your office, or maybe you're watching us on Facebook, because I believe also Facebook viewer will be given an opportunity to also send their questions and everything. And you've got any questions with regards to refugees in Zambia, this is a program that allows you to call through and make those contributions keep coming. So today's program will look at livelihood. I've already introduced that, and economic inclusion programs for refugees, others of concerns, and their hosting communities. So for a long time, refugees and others of concern to the government and the United Nations High Commission of Refugees have been seen as a perpetual recipient of aid, people who are of a burden to the host community. But however, in real fact, the situation is the opposite from what we know. Refugees and others of concern are becoming self-reliant. They are active and positive contributors to the economy through various ways. And so we are going to play you a clip for now from Jewel of Africa.
UNHCR has partnered with Jewel for Africa to offer a lapidary apprenticeship program to refugee youths. The youths go through specialized skills training in order to master the skills needed for future job opportunities.
My name is David Williams. I'm from Burundi, and I'm one of the apprentices here at U of Africa, and UNHCR and U of Africa apprenticeship program. So here is what I do.
Under the UNHCR and the Joe of Africa apprenticeship program. So this is what I do.
Thank you so much for still staying tuned to CAMNET TV, not just another channel. This is a refugee awareness program, and it has been brought to us courtesy of UNHCR, that is the United Nations High Commission for Refugees in Zambia. And of course, the topic of discussion is sustainable livelihood programs for refugees and others of concern in Zambia. And of course, I've introduced a panelist, and we are going to get to discuss that topic. But of course, as I introduced when I started this program, we will allow you to phone in if you've got a question with regards to refugees in Zambia. We'll give you an opportunity to call through and ask our panelists any of those questions that you have pending. So now this brings me to the government, of course. When we come to the topic of discussion, what policies and actions have been put in place by government to facilitate refugees and host communities' participation and contribution to local economies?
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, foremost, I pass my thanks to UNHCR and other partners for the help that they've rendered to the government with regards to the issues of refugees in Zambia. So having known, I think there's a perception that refugees are supposed to be in the camp, and of which is the truth, supposed to be in the camp. But the government saw it fit and revised that law and allowed refugees under meeting certain conditions or criteria for them to leave the settlement and come and do some livelihood programs outside the settlement. Having said that, to help refugees sustain themselves, they've brought about the mobility pass, of which most of the refugees are very active in the farming in settlements. So which the refugees are able to get mobility passes from the refugee officers for goods which they need to sell. So those mobility passes, they're able to go even as far as 3 months. They'll be after the settlements, they sell their goods, or if they've come for, some of them, they even use that for internships, some others will go for 3 months internship using our documents, of which after they sell their goods, are able to go back to the settlements. And the other issue is that the government, through FISIP, has also helped both refugees and the local people by providing to about 387 persons, both refugees and locals, with some farming inputs.
Okay.
Yes, so in 2020, we received some funding from AU, African Union, of which about 1,000, both refugees and locals and former refugees benefited from that.
Okay. Okay, Mrs. Perry, thank you so much for that contribution. Maybe just another question. So you mean people in the camps equally receive FISIP programs or maybe support from others to enable them do their cultivation of crops?
Thank you so much. Yeah, yes, they do. They do receive FISIP. Because mostly the refugees that in the settlements are the ones who really do the farming. Like in my area, I've got people who do, they grow rice, cassava, potatoes. Yes, so those people, most of them receive, FISIP.
Okay, that's really interesting. Coming to the United Nations High Commission of Refugees, so which economic or livelihood activities do refugees engage in, and what specific roles does UNHCR play in empowering refugees to help them become self-reliant?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think first, before I respond to the question, I'd like to express UNHCR's appreciation for the support that the government of Zambia has provided to refugees in Zambia, because it's always said Zambia is a haven for refugees and has hosted refugees for many, many years. So it's, as UNHCR would like to say thank you to the government. As you've already seen in the clip, refugees, when they cross the borders, they do cross the borders with a lot of things that, if they bring across, will contribute to the local economies. And when they're in Zambia, when they're in asylum, they engage in a lot of livelihood activities. For example, a number of them engage in businesses. They run businesses themselves because they carry along the skills they had in their countries to come and do the business. So you find that some of them are running petty trade businesses. Some of them are running shops, groceries. Some of them are running wholesale and retail businesses. And some of them are even running restaurants that are employing local people. Besides that, in the settlements where the refugees stay, which is mainly rural economies, quite a number of them engage in farming as a way of meeting their food consumption, to provide for their income, because they're able to produce and sell some of it. And again, besides farming and engaging in business, refugees also come with skills. We have people who are professionals. We have people who are doctors, nurses, teachers, and many skilled professionals. So again, some of them use their skills that they come with to contribute to the local economy, because if you go to some of the private institutions, private hospitals, or even some of the public hospitals, you find the skilled ones who have got the opportunity to engage or to be employed, giving their skills there. So I would say refugees, just like any other person, they engage in a varied number of activities to enable them meet their needs, be it business, small, medium, be it farming for the ones who are in the settlements, and as well as applying the skills they have, like professionals. Thank you.
So how do the refugees contribute to the development of local economies, and how can they be supported to optimize their contribution?
Yeah, again, I would like to say that refugees are people like any other person, and they carry with them innate abilities, potential, that if given the right environment, they can be able to contribute a lot. So they contribute in many ways. One of them is refugees, they are employed. If you go to the settlements, you find some of them working on piecework. They employed on piecework. They work as casuals. They also, like the skilled ones, the one I said, were employed. So they bring the labor.
Okay.
So that's already a contribution to the economy. And then secondly, refugees do business. And when they're doing the business, some of them are able to pay for the permits that are required, which contributes to the local coffers or the local economy. So the fact that they're engaged in business, they're paying for the permits, that's a contribution to the local economy. And thirdly, refugees employ, because like I said, some of them have established what I would call medium and small enterprises, which employ. If you go to within Lusaka, you'll find some of the shops employing even Zambians. If you go to the settlements, you'll find that in the farms, refugees engage, with local communities too, and so they create employment as well in whatever they do. And then lastly, I would say the coming of refugees also brings development to the area. I'll give an example. In one of the settlements that we have, that is Mantapala settlement, which is in the Luapula province in Telenge district, which was established some 5 years ago. This was a forest. It was purely a forest where there was nothing growing that was happening there. Locals had to walk long distances to go to nearby hospital or nearby health center. They had to walk long distances to go to school. With the coming of refugees, we have health centers which have been built there. We have schools which have been built there. We have a police post which is also there providing security. And we have markets which is enhancing interaction and enhancing trading between locals and the hosting community. We have roads which have been opened up. We have water provision that has been provided, and a number of development. So it's a small, you'll call it a small town out of nowhere, which was never there. So the coming of refugees, apart from them being providing the labor that they provide when they employ, or even when they employing others, they also bring development into the local areas where they come, because when they come, development comes there. So the contribution that refugees bring to local economies is, I would say, net is very, very valuable. And this, in the long run, contributes the local coffers.
So how can they be supported? Yeah,
I think one of the things that needs to be done, and what UNHCR has been doing, is to engage, especially working very closely with the government, to create an enabling environment so that these refugees can be able to use the skills that they have, they can be able to use the potentials that they bring along to contribute to the local economies. And one of the examples that can be done is to, how do we enhance the environment, an enabling environment? What kind of policies can be put in place that would, help these people to thrive? Because as I've already explained, they bring boom to an area, not gloom, and they need to thrive and not survive. So we need, and working together, we need to put up policies and laws that would, help them build these potentials that they have. The ones who are highly skilled, being able to, use the skills through getting employment. The ones who want to do business, who perhaps have their own sources of income, they can be able to start their own businesses, being able to start their businesses without any challenges, then they're able to contribute to the local coffers. Again, the other thing that needs to be done, where there's local development, as I've said, they bring development to an area. So there's a need to provide that support, especially from the development partners, to be able to support the government as well as all actors who are working there to bring development in these areas, because it does not only benefit refugees alone, but it also benefits the locals, like the hospitals, the schools, and all that. So that needs to be done. Private sector companies need to also include refugees in their service provision. Like, for example, the ones who are doing business, the ones who would want credit to help them to start to grow their business, or even start a business. So there's a lot that can be done, not only by the government or UNHCR, but all other actors, development actors, donors, private sector companies, to include them in their value chains, the production and supply chains. And as I've said, refugees bring boom and not gloom.
Okay. Thank you so much for that elaborative explanation. Sustainable Livelihood Program for Refugees and Others of Concern is a topic of discussion this afternoon, and this program has been brought to us courtesy of the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. And of course, we are looking at Refugees Awareness Program. And this is a phone-in program where you will be given an opportunity to call through and ask what questions you have with regards to refugees in Zambia. This brings me to Mr. Chisenga. Of course, is the Urban Projects Coordinator for Caritas Czech Republic. Mr. Chisenga, what are the roles, like Caritas Czech Republic, like what role of partner do you play, and how do you support refugees to be self-reliant?
Okay, thank you very much. Firstly, we work closely. We are an implementing part of UNHCR, and we work closely, of course, with the government as well. And what we mainly focus on is enabling refugees become self-reliant, of course. And then we do this through building their capacity, empowering them with skills that will enable them engage in income-generating activities. Some of them, I can give an example, are business skills training. They can be conservation farming, honeybee production. The list can go on and on. So we empower refugees with such type of skills. Then aside from that, we also give them startup capital to help them to kick off their businesses. Then we also help them with market linkages, so that after they have gained those skills and they're able to produce various products, we are able to ensure that their products don't just end up somewhere in the back room, but they are on the market, someone is buying them. And as George earlier said, with these interventions, or with these programs, it enables them to also become someone else's client and employ other Zambians from within Zambia.
Okay, so So what livelihood programs do you implement to support refugees in urban areas like Lusaka? And we've also seen other settlements such as Mayeva, Mayukwa, and Mantapala.
So there are a number of programs that we implement. One of them, just to mention a few, there is what we call the Women and Girls at Risk program, for instance, which mainly looks at women that have undergone SGBV, or baby single house, single women-headed households, and so forth. So such a program is meant, for instance, for such a family to gain some business skills training, and then aside from that, we help them also with startup capital. They also undergo counseling just to ensure that they are in the right state of mind to engage in income-generating activities.
Okay, that is interesting to know. In case you're just tuning in to Kamne TV, this is a refugee awareness program, and it has been brought to us courtesy of the United Nations High Commission of Refugees. And we are discussing, of course, the welfare of refugees in Zambia and their contribution to economic development. So in case you're just tuning in to Kamne TV and you'd like to make your contributions, the phone lines are open. You can call through and ask some of those pending questions that you would really want to get answers to with regards to refugees in our country. So just right about now, I'm going to throw this question to the government, in this case, Mrs. Piri. What, is it Mrs. Piri? Okay, pardon me. Maybe let me throw this question to the sponsor of this program. As UNHCR and partners, how have you structured the assignment you give to these refugees, be it in the area of education, health, agriculture, and other areas, to ensure that there is no resentment from the host community, especially in rural areas where most of these people are poor?
Yeah, once again, let me say thank you very much for that question. And again, take us back a bit. As I said, the government of Zambia and Zambians in general have hosted refugees for many, many years, and Zambia is always an example to many countries on what it has done to support refugees. And the approach that the government has put in place is quite a good one, and it's being an example to many countries. And this approach is such that gives the refugees some opportunity to be able to engage.
Okay.
If you go to Mantapala, if you go to Meheba, if you go to Baikoikwa, they are in settlements, not camps like in many other countries. So again, in these settlements, refugees are able to interact with the locals, and they're able to share the services that are available. So in our collaboration with the government, and as well as other partners like Caritas Czech Republic, whatever services that is available, it's always targeting both refugees and as well as the communities that host them, in this case Zambians. So if you go to Meheba, if you go to Maikoikwa, the hospitals, or rather the health centers that are there, you'll find refugees attending those, going to the same place as well as Zambians. If you go to the schools, you'll find Zambians, you'll find refugees. If you go to the markets, there's a lot of interaction. So it's structured in a way to enhance socioeconomic engagement. I know there's a lot that can be done to better the situation, but in whatever we do, we make sure that it's inclusive. Let me use the word inclusive, because it's only by doing that then that you're able to enhance development, you ensure social cohesion between the communities. So all programs are structured in the way that it benefits both refugees and the communities around there. In this case, hosting community. And also allow me to add that we work very closely with the government, and our role is to support the government in this case to be able to offer protection to refugees. And in our role in implementing the role, one of the things that we do, we play a facilitative role. We play a convening role, and when I say convening role is that we reach out to other actors who would otherwise bring on board, bring on board support that will provide the comprehensive support. So we reach out to actors, development actors, donors, we reach out to private sector companies, we reach out to many other actors, bring them on board to be able to support the work that the government is doing, which is in terms of providing education. During the COVID situation, we did work with a number of institutions to provide mobile tablets for people to be able to learn during the COVID situation period.
Okay.
In terms of livelihoods, we are partnering with some companies to include refugees in the supply chain so that whatever refugees are able to produce is also taken to the same market, and many other actors. So we play a facilitating role and working very closely with the government to bring on board these other actors who can be able to support and structure our support in a way that it benefits both refugees as well as the community around. It's only by doing that that you bring development and you ensure that you maintain the dignity that's required for all the persons living in those areas. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sustainable livelihood program for refugees and others of concern is our topic of discussion this afternoon. And of course, we've got various representatives from the government, representative from UNHCR, and we've got also a representative from Czech Republic. And of course, we are looking at the welfare of refugees in the country. So we are going to allow you, the viewer, to call through and make those contributions. But before we get to do that, we are going to play you a song.
UNHCR has partnered with Jewel for Africa to offer a lapidary apprenticeship program to refugee youths. The youths go through specialized skills training in order to master the skills needed for future job opportunities.
My name is David Williams. I'm from Burundi, and I'm one of the apprentices here at Jewel of Africa, and UNHCR and Jewel of Africa apprenticeship program. So here is what I do.
Under the UNHCR and the Jewel of Africa apprenticeship program. So this is what I do.
Sustainable livelihood programs for refugees and others of concern in Zambia is our topic of discussion this afternoon. And of course, we have been joined by various stakeholders from the government, from the UNHCR, and of course, from Czech Republic. And of course, we are looking at the welfare of refugees in the country. And I know a lot of us out there have got a lot of questions with regards to refugees. We do hear concerns such as, no, we've seen a lot of refugees have taken over the business, they've taken over our businesses, they are owning a lot of shops, no, refugees are doing ABCD. But also we should know that refugees equally contribute to the development of the country, as was explained earlier on the program by Mr. Oder, that refugees bring economic development. They bring a lot of factors to the development of the country. So just moving forward with our discussion, CCR, let me throw this question to you. What are the main challenges refugees face in meeting their livelihood, and how can they be supported to improve their well-being?
Thank you very much. I think one of the main challenges is that they still face discrimination from some of the host community members, but not everyone, some. And I think what we are still advocating for and trying to sensitize the Zambians is that a refugee is not the same as a foreigner. A refugee has came from their countries due to very bad circumstances like war. So we need to understand that when they come to Zambia, it's not they didn't come because they wanted to, but it's because of something bad that happened which pushed them to come to Zambia, such as war. So when they come here, they are not here to steal any jobs. And on top of that, when you look at refugees, most of them we know a number of them that have done really well and have ended up employing a number of Zambians. So what they face, there is discrimination from some of the host community members, but we have been working on that with the government and UNHCR, of course. And then the other challenge that we probably need to do is that we probably still need to look at our laws in Zambia, because some of them do not completely differentiate between a foreigner and a refugee. So as a result, they face challenges with certain documentation that they need for them to conduct income generating activities. Then aside from that, the other challenges that they face are language barriers. But with time, some of them, they learn our local languages and they become so fluent in them.
You've mentioned a very important point. You've said refugees are not the same as foreigners. I think for some time, we've really misunderstood the meaning of the word refugee. So I would like you to go just a little bit detail in that. What is the difference between a refugee and what is the difference between a foreigner? I know you've done a little bit of explanation. Okay, let me not throw that question to you. Let me maybe throw this question to the government, and that is to Mrs. Phiri. Mrs. Phiri, please help us clarify who's a refugee and who's a foreigner, so that even when people are complaining out there, they should know what they're talking about, because I think people tend to mix the two.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, as my colleague from Caritas has spoken, a refugee is a person that leaves their country of origin due to well-founded fear of persecution to another country for safety. So that person leaves not willingly, but there's a factor that has pushed that person to leave. Unlike a foreigner is a person, in a layman's language, where he plans, I want to go to another country to go and invest. It's not something pushing the person, but he's willing to leave that country and go to another country for greener pasture or to make some money. So that's the difference between it.
Okay, that is interesting. So if, for example, people from Congo are having a little bit of fights, we know sometimes Congo has got this war that goes on in their country, and they decide to cross and come to Zambia, then they qualify to be called refugees.
Well, with regards to that, there's the same criteria that we look at. So everyone that comes from Congo or other country will come in and be given the refugee status. So there's usually some screening that is done for security reasons. And when they qualify with the criteria that is set, that's when they are given a refugee status. Yes.
And you take them into camps?
We take them into camps. That's according to our law, but besides that, that's just a general rule. There are exceptions of which you'd find refugees in towns. That's usually when they've been given permission by the office.
Okay.
Those who are found there illegally, immigration has got the right to pounce on them and take them back to the settlement.
Okay, let's talk about their contribution to the local economies, like here in Lusaka and other settlements. What development or what contribution are these refugees bringing to these settlements?
Okay, as the previous colleagues might have said, most of refugees, when they come into our country, some come with skills. Some come as medical personnel, some come as lecturers, some come as farm-oriented persons. So when we look at, for example, like lecturers, we've got some non-lecturers who have even tutored us, but are not others, the refugees. Especially people in the law fraternity might attest to that. Yes. So with regards to business also, refugees, if you go, for example, if you go along Cairo Road, you would even find some Rwandans or Burundians have got hostels, and you'd find Zambians are busy working there. So I think with regards to that, you will see that they're putting some input in our economy. They're not lazy, they're hardworking. Even in our small towns, you'd find Zambians, most would find them sleeping, but you find the Rwandese shop.
Opens at 006.
Instead of you going to Manda Hill, you find they've got no salt, you rush that to that shop and buy that. So with regards to that, they're very helpful to the economy of Zambia. And besides that, we've got investors, refugees. And those, for them to get that permit, they're paying some money, of which our government is enjoying, and the locals are benefiting from it.
They benefit. That is a great point. Maybe just throwing it a little bit even to you, how do you give work permits to some of these refugees with qualifications when they come? I know you did mention that you do screening, but for them maybe to put their skills to use. Like if I'm a lecturer, a refugee lecturer comes in, of course they would like to continue practicing as lecturers. So how do you screen for them to be given work permits?
Okay, for example, there's a project called UQP, UNESCO Qualifications Passport, which has been going on for now, whereby, for example, if a refugee comes into Zambia as an asylum seeker and they're going to refugee status, they'll be given some assessment forms of which they would state what their requirements, their professional qualifications, of which those professional qualifications are screened by ZAQA and one of the education Ministry of Education from Norway, of which when they pass those qualifications, they are given a UNESCO passport, a document where they can be held in institutions. So usually when they're applying for permits, for employment permits, they usually bring an offer of employment to our office, of which will give them a recommendation letter, and that when they're given the recommendation letter, they go to immigration, where they have to satisfy the requirements under the Immigration Act. So when they pay that amount of money, and they'll be given the payment. Yes. So going further, when they're given that payment, they usually come to our office, of which they'll be given, they would apply for what we call the white urban resident card, so they're able to move around their workplaces. Because without that white card, the immigration might pounce on them.
Okay, that is interesting. Sustainable livelihood program for refugees and others of concern in Zambia is our topic of discussion this afternoon, and we have various stakeholders in the country who are helping us discuss the welfare of refugees in the country. And of course, we have been joined by Mrs. Leukanji Piri from, of course, from the government perspective. We have someone, of course, from UNHCR, that is Mr. George Omodi Odora, and we have someone from the Czech Republic, that is Caritas Czech Republic, Mr. Misozi Chisenga. And of course, for everyone who's just joining us, we are allowing you to phone in and make your contributions with regards to the welfare of refugees in our country. And now this brings me to, of course, UNHCR. So what major opportunities come with increased inclusion of refugees into local economies, and how does this contribute to local development of refugees hosting areas?
Yeah, thank you for that question once again. But allow me to go back to one of the questions that you put across, just to complement what my colleague from the government, as well as my colleague from Caritas has said. And this is regards to the challenges that refugees go through. You realize that when you talk about economic challenges, it affects both communities, be it a refugee, be it a host community of somebody, a Zambian.
Okay. And I'll have to cut you a little bit, Mr. George. Apologies for that. I think we have a caller. Hello. Good afternoon, ma'am.
My name is Trisha.
Yes, please.
I'm calling from Chalala.
It's good to know Chalala is tuned in this afternoon. Please go ahead with your contribution or question.
Yeah, my question is, what can be done for refugees who want to work but can't afford work permit?
Okay, thank you so much for that question.
Oh.
I think this question is yours, Mrs. Piri, but before we get to that, I'm going to allow Mr. Odara to finish with his thoughts.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to compliment on the issue of challenges. I think the caller was just called in as presented one of the challenges that they do face, and I believe my colleague from the government will be able to respond to that. But I wanted to add, the COVID situation that it did impact globally had an impact on the lives of refugees, because a number of them could not be able to, keep their jobs. The ones who had casual employment, a number of them who had businesses had their businesses closed, and in this, at the household level, a number of them had their food security impacted. So that has created a lot of challenges. A lot of them have become economically vulnerable. As much as we do have a percentage of refugees who are able to engage and contribute to the local economy, but we still have a big percentage of the refugee community who are economically vulnerable. And COVID really impacted on that. They are required to be in the settlement where majority of the activities are agricultural based, but you find that those who are not farmers, those who have no skills in farming and would want to engage in non-farming activities, the opportunities are limited. Access to financial credit to help them start their businesses is not adequate. What is available only supports very few. So there's need to open up the space so that they're able to also access credit for them to be able to start business, the ones who are not farmers. So that presents a challenge. The caller has just presented the fact that, of course, when they have to get a work permit for them to engage in employment. And as explained, there's a procedure for them to access the work permit. But there's a payment requirement, and those who cannot afford to pay for that, then they're challenged. So there are challenges that expose them to economic vulnerabilities, and a bigger percentage in this category. So I wanted to add on the issue of the challenges. But otherwise, I'll call me.
Maybe Mrs. Perry, our caller, of course, there just raised a very important question where she's asking that what can be done to refugees who want to get work permits but they are unable to.
Okay, with the response to the question, as it stands, according to our laws.
Okay, let me cut you short before maybe you answer that. Let's take another question. Okay. Hello, good afternoon. Hello?
Hello?
Hello, you're through to the program. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, thank you.
Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, I'm able to get you. Can you tell us your name and where you're calling us from?
Yes, this is from Wahuma.
Yes, calling from where? It's good to know Lusaka is watching this afternoon. Go ahead with your contribution or question.
Yeah, I want to find out this. Is it a person is born here from refugee parents, and then do you have to become Zambians or become refugees forever?
Okay, so the question is, if someone is born...
How long you become a citizen? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we got the question. So he's asking that if you're born from refugee parents, how long, are you a Zambian citizen, or how long does it have to take for you to become a Zambian citizen? Thank you so much. I hope our guest in here will be able to respond to that. But maybe coming back to Mrs. Piri.
Okay, thank you so much. So with regards to the first question, the law provides that the refugee, if going to embark in employment, they need to have a payment. Having said that, I know the payments, the prices were high. They used to pay the same price as the foreigners. But a policy was passed of which they pay half compared to the foreigner, of which it can be shown that the government has taken consideration with regards to the plea.
Okay.
So, I know there's a cry of waiving out that due to the fact that there's a difference between the foreigner and the refugee. But those are laws which have to, you can't just wake up tomorrow and change. It's a process. But during that process, the government recently had, some time back, had hiked the payments for the payments. So of which, after the cry, they reduced half. So they're paying half compared to the foreigners.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that is interesting. Maybe this question of who, someone born from refugee parents, maybe just clarify that one. Are they called Zambians or are they refugees, and how long does it take for one to become a Zambian citizen?
Okay, with regards to question 2, a person who's born from a refugee parents will still continue being a refugee. So if they want to become Zambians, they have to cease being a refugee and stay for 10 years. That's when they would apply for citizenship in Zambia. So as long as they're born from a refugee parents, they continue being a refugee.
Okay. There was, of course, we've got also a question that has come through from one of the viewer, and they are saying, what are your views on the UNHCR Zambia registration data for refugees? I think maybe let me throw this question to you, sir.
Yeah, I think I'll leave this to the government, because in Zambia, the government is in charge of registering refugees.
Okay, maybe I thought is mentioned to say, what are your views on the UNHCR Zambia registration data for refugees? That's why I threw the question to you.
Actually, the data is owned by the government. In Zambia, the refugee comes in, registered by the government. And so what is in the screen, I think I'll hand it over to the government to
comment. Okay, let's go to Mrs. Piri. Perhaps maybe you can take this question.
Okay, so with regards to registration of refugees, so far we've got about 75,867 refugees. Then we have 4,448 asylum seekers, and then we have 19,656. And also have foreign Rwandan refugees, 5,239.
Okay.
Refugees, yes.
Okay, that is interesting data. So in total, how many refugees are we talking about? Grand total?
The grand total comes to about 80,215.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's quite a number. Okay. Okay, then maybe going back to UNHCR, do you have any recommendations or request action by different stakeholders to further enhance the positive contribution by refugees into local economies?
Yeah, thank you once again. I want to bring in an aspect. In 2019, there was a global event that brought about different countries.
Okay, it seems we have a lot of people who are eager to ask questions. Let's give them a chance.
Hello?
Hello, good afternoon.
Afternoon, this is Muranga.
Munanga, you're calling us from where, sir?
Yes, I wanted to find out why does the government teach these people in companies like prison?
Repeat the question. Just repeat the question. I'm saying repeat your question.
Why does the government teach these like prison?
Thank you so much, sir, for that question. I think government this afternoon, you have been put on a hot seat. And of course, our viewer wants to find out why refugees in these camps are treated like prisoners. I don't really understand. I've not been, I would like one day to visit these refugee camps to just see how refugees are treated. But I'm going to ask, maybe you can respond to the question.
So with regards to that question, as we all know, when you go to a house, there are rules and regulations. So when you go to a house, you have to abide by those rules. Unless if they feel they can bend and allow you to enjoy certain rules of that house. So at Zambia, we practice the policy of cap incumbent policy. Well, if a refugee or asylum seeker, has been given refugee status, they have to go and stay in the
camp.
Unlike other countries like Uganda where they move freely. So like where I studied at first, every house has got rules. So this is a Zambian house rule to be in the camp. But however, Zambia saw, okay, these people need to have a livelihood, or maybe a person will be sick, they need medical attention to other medical facilities which can be provided within the settlement, of which they apply to our office. We give them passes, we give them cards, documents, which they can move around, do their business, go to the hospital. When they're done, some of them even stay in Lusaka for 2 years for medical attention, then they go back. Some have got investors permits. They do their businesses. So despite that general rule, there's an exception on which we allow refugees to be found outside the camp.
Is it true that they are treated like prisoners? Because that was his concern, to say, why do you treat them as prisoners?
I can assure you, when you go to Maheba, the place is so big. I don't know if it's as big as Lusaka. They've got big chunks of land given to them to cultivate, which I don't know if you can have that piece of land yourself as a Zambian, but they have that.
They've been given opportunities.
Yes, of which other countries even applaud Zambia to that extent of even giving them that piece of land. Yes.
Now that's interesting. UNHCR, let me throw this to you. I know you did not finish your point and you were interrupted by the caller. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond to the question again. So do you have any recommendations or required actions by different stakeholders to further enhance the positive contribution by refugees into local economies?
Yeah, allow me to start by presenting some data because statistics really helps in making decisions and all that. There has been a lot of studies done, data collected in different places.
I don't know if you're going to finish that thought, but let me hold you a little bit. We've got another caller. Hello? Hello? Oh, it seems we lost that caller. Please keep calling. We will respond to those questions that you have to ask. Of course, the topic of discussion this afternoon is Sustainable Livelihood Program for Refugees and Others of Concern in Zambia. We're looking at the welfare of refugees in our country, and we have been joined by different stakeholders. So if you can't get through to our line, keep trying. Hopefully you do, so that we can respond to those questions that you have pending. So let me give you an opportunity, sir, to exhaust your point.
Yeah. I was saying that data really helps in making decisions and, you know, making policies and all that. And I wanted to give an example of data that has been collected in many places, studies that have been done in many places to show the impact that the coming of refugees to local economies, what impact it brings, and available data, even including from, you know, very, very reliable sources, indicate that the coming of refugees brings, as I said before, boom. Boom in the sense that they are consumers, they're employers, they are net contributors to the coffers. So it brings a lot of development in the area. And having said that, I think the only thing that we can do as stakeholders, led by the government, is to, you know, develop an environment that will help these people to more and more use the skills that they have, more and more use the potential that they have, more and more contribute to the local economy, because they bring boom. And I want to emphasize on the fact that refugees bring boom and not gloom. So given the opportunity, then they can be able to contribute more and more and more. And in doing this, what we need to do is to make sure that all stakeholders that play a part come on board.
Okay, let me just cut you a little bit. I think we've got a caller. Hello.
Hello. Good afternoon, madam.
Good afternoon. Thank you, sir. Tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
I'm calling from within Lusaka.
Please go ahead with your contribution. What's your name, sir?
I'm Mr. Thomas Tonga.
Mr. Thomas, please go ahead with your contribution.
I'm following the program. I enjoy the program.
Thank you.
I just want to know how many camps for refugees we have in the country, and the numbers in total at these camps. I joined the program midway. I don't know if you have talked about that already.
All right. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, before we respond to that, please, you can finish with your thought.
Yeah. So I was saying that data available from other places, and even including in Zambia, is that refugees bring boom and not gloom, and they can only contribute more and more if given the opportunity and the environment is made enabling. But again, in 2019, countries came together and came up with something called Comprehensive Refugee Response Framework. And this means that all actors need to come together to support, for a burden sharing, because the government of Zambia has allowed refugees to come. But then again, they also have Zambians to take care of. So there's need for development actors to come on board, donors to come on board, to be able to support in providing assistance to refugees and even helping them to thrive. Again, private sector can play a role, other NGOs can play a role. So I think one of the things that we want to put forward is that we call upon all actors to come on board to support development of refugee areas, not refugee area only, but all the areas that target both refugees and host community. And in this way, then we enable refugees to thrive and not to survive, because the more they survive, the more they become a burden. But the more they thrive, the more they contribute to the local economy. And again, when you talk about one of the challenges that refugees go through is the lack of access to or limited opportunities for post-secondary opportunities. Those who complete primary school, they go to secondary, but then when they complete secondary, the opportunity to be able to build their skills is limited. So if you give them the opportunity to build that potential, in the long run, you'll be creating doctors in the local economy that will still work in the country. Thank you.
Okay, maybe just a quick one, Madam Piri, with regards to the question that has been raised by the viewer. How many camps do we have, and what is the population of each camp?
Okay, thank you so much. So we have 3 camps. We've got Maheva settlement, which is in Solwezi. We have Ikwayukwa, which is found in Kaoma. Then we have Matapala, which is found in Chelenge. So with regards to Maheva, we have refugees, asylum seekers, former Rwandans, and former Angolans, making a total of 34,000 732. That's Maheba settlement. Then with regards to Mayukwayukwa, we have a total of 21,402. Then the last but not the least, Matapala, we have 18,210.
Okay. That is interesting. You have the figures there for Mr. Thomas Tonga, who wanted to find out how many refugee camps we have and what is the population. I hope your question has been answered. But even before we conclude the program, suddenly, maybe let me throw this question to Caritas Czech Republic. Do we have a situation where refugees want to go back to their countries? Have you had such cases, or have you handled such cases where refugees want to go back to their country?
As much as I would love to answer that question, you'd have to throw it to the government.
Okay, let me throw it to the government then.
Okay, thank you so much once more. Yes, we have situations from our office who come to our office wanting to cease, someone to go back to their country, someone to remain and stay here on permits.
Okay.
Yes, so usually when they come to our office, if they want to come, there is some scrutiny that we do, some interview, and then they also have to give us some documentation with regards, for example, if they're maybe from going to go back to their country, maybe they have some travel documents that's been issued by the embassy. Some request them to get the passport of their nationality, because once we see them in a database as not a refugee, immigration might find them on the street and tell them what's documentation. So before we seize them from enjoying the refugee status, require that they put some documents which they can protect themselves when they're outside there, when they're out of our operations.
Okay, under 1 minute. What is your concluding remark?
I would just like to emphasize to Zambians, please, a foreign and a refugee are not the same people. Please, let's research up on it, and please, let's stay away. Do not discriminate. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know you did mention at first to say there is a lot of discrimination for refugees, but people don't really understand the difference between who's a refugee and who's a foreigner, and that was clarified on this program. Maybe your concluding remarks are from your side?
Yeah, for me is to call upon all actors to come on board to support the government in providing protection and providing solutions to refugees. As we've already had, refugees contribute to the local economies by being labor. They provide labor, they provide market, they employ, they also create employment. They also bring cultural exchange because they come with their culture, and this is exchange. We have a situation whereby refugees are teaching other local Zambians on how to make baskets, on how to make many other things, and even musicians. We have those who play music, and they bring cultural exchange. And also they create development, they bring development to the local areas. So mine is just to call upon all actors, including we as individuals, to create an environment that is enabling for these people, for this population to thrive. Thank you.
Very important. Mrs. Perry, your concluding remarks under 1 minute.
Okay, with regards to concluding, I would like to say thank you to UNHCR and its partners for coming on board and helping our government in helping refugees, and also cry out to the Zambians, my fellow Zambians. Zambia is going to be a motherly country. Let's treat them as brothers and sisters. They came to this country not of their own will, but because of something, a factor which can also happen to us. So I just cry to the Zambians, let's treat them as brothers and sisters. Thank you so much.
Sustainable Livelihood Program for Refugees and Others of Concern in Zambia was a topic of discussion, and this was a refugee awareness program on Kamne TV, and it was brought to us courtesy of the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. In case you've just tuned in, unfortunately this is where we have to close the program, but if you'd like to know what is it that we were discussing, this of course the interview was live on Facebook. You can go through and just peruse through to try and understand what is it that is happening with regards to refugees in our country. Remember, do not discriminate a refugee. Today it can be you, today it can be them, and tomorrow it might be you. Remember to love one another. This has been your host, Prudence Chota. Until then, good afternoon.